On the last episode that we did, I picked the Houston Texans as my dark horse Super Bowl contender, which made a lot of Jaguar fans incredibly upset with me. And for those of you guys who don't know, I live in Jacksonville. I've pretty much spent my entire life in this city. And I had a bunch of friends who were blowing up my phone, angrily texting me that, JT, you tripping picking the Texans to be a dark horse Super Bowl contender. You're sleeping on the Jags. We got a shot to win the AFC South. Look, I love my beloved Jacksonville Jaguars, all right? But the Jaguars are not ready to compete with the Houston Texans this year. Other than the wide receiver position with Travis Hunter, Dami Brown, and BTJ, the Texans clear the Jaguars on every other position. Quarterback CJ Stroud's better than Trevor Lawrence. The Texans defense is miles ahead of the Jaguars. The Texans have one of the 5 most talented defenses entering this year. They got an elite secondary. They got a really good front seven. And the only concern that the Texans have is their offensive line, which is the same concern that the Jaguars have coming into this season. They had to revamp their offensive line just like how the Texans had to this offseason. But the Jaguars just have way more question marks than what the Texans do. If the Texans get solid offensive line play, they're going to be a Super Bowl contender. Meanwhile, the Jaguars, you have a new head coach in Liam Coen, who I'm really high on. I don't question if Liam Coen is going to be successful. I just don't know if he'll be successful immediately to the point where the Jaguars can challenge the Texans for the NFC South. I see Liam Coen in his first season at best winning 9 games, because you still have to see how consistent is Trevor Lawrence going to be. We know when Trevor Lawrence is playing at his best, he's good to be one of the best quarterbacks in the league, but the issue is that he's been consistently inconsistent up to this point. He struggles with ball security. Sometimes he can just get happy feet in the pocket when you get pressure on him. And the defense has issues on the interior defensive line. The secondary has some holes. You got Jerry Jones, who had a pretty promising rookie season. You got Travis Hunter, who should be good playing both ways, corner and receiver. But Tyson Campbell, he hasn't been as good as what he was during his rookie season. You also have another hole at safety. The Jaguars just have more questions that I have to see them get answered when the season kicks off than me having confidence in picking them to challenge the Houston Texans for the AFC South. I'm not questioning if the Jaguars have the ability to surprise us and win the AFC South, but I just have to see it to believe it, because right now the Texans have a squad that's just an offensive line away from bursting that Super Bowl bubble, which has mainly been just the Chiefs, the Ravens, and the Bills. The Texans can definitely enter that conversation. And also what Jaguar fans have to realize is that with how badly Trent Baalke drafted these last couple of years, he also set this team back a year or two. What is the difference between the Texans and the Jaguars is that the Texans have nailed most of their draft picks. Some of the best players on the Texans roster, they drafted. They were homegrown. Jalen Petrie, Kamari Lassiter, Derek Stingley, CJ Stroud, Nico Collins. On the other hand, the Jaguars have whiffed on a bunch of picks. Trayvon Walker, I don't necessarily think he's a bust, but is he going to turn into an elite player? Because he's a B-tier level player, but he's not an A-tier level player like Aiden Hutchinson is. Can Trayvon Walker truly become a game changer for this Jaguars defense? Because if he is, along with Josh Allen, then you essentially have a top 3 pass rushing duo in the league, and that definitely could be good enough to put you in the forefront as a contender for the AFC South this year. But I just need to see it to believe it with the Jaguars first, and there's a lot of stuff that has to get played out on the field that I'm not confident right now and saying that the Jags are going to be able to go toe-to-toe with Houston for this division. The Texans are just miles ahead of Jacksonville right now in terms of their coaching staff with D'Amico Ryans, who is one of the best up-and-coming head coaches in the league. He already has a proven franchise quarterback in C.J. Stroud. The Texans are just more proven than what the Jaguars are. And that's why I feel like they're a sure thing to win this division for a third straight season, because C.J. Stroud's rookie season, the Jaguars were locked to win this division. But as soon as you give the Jaguars expectations, that's when they disappoint. I think the Jaguars are better when they're underlooked and they're slept on versus when everybody starts singing their praises. And right now, the Jaguars got to be that underdog. They got to be that sleeper. They have to show it. And I got to see it to believe it, because the Texans have a damn good team. That secondary is outright terrifying. Not only do you got Derek Stingley, arguably the best cornerback in the league, but you added Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. You got Kamari Lassiter, who had one of the best rookie seasons for a first-year defensive back. You got Will Anderson going into his third season. He could end up being an all-pro this year. The Texans just have studs all across the board. If that offensive line ends up improving, they're going to be in the Super Bowl conversation this year. The Jaguars, they have some ways to go before we start talking Super Bowl with them. We have to see if they can actually have a winning record first with Liam Coen. So that's why I view the Texans in a lot higher regard as what I view the Jacksonville Jaguars. They just have been more proven on the field, more consistent, and it's just a bunch of unknown variables that have to play out with the Jags this year in my eyes.